was a moonless night when 12-year-old Emily dared herself to visit the graveyard, a place the townsfolk whispered about, but never ventured near after dark. Her friends had taunted her, calling her too scared to prove her bravery. That's all it took. Determined to show them wrong, she slipped out of her bedroom window and headed into the blackness. The wind was silent, except for the occasional rustle of dead leaves scraping across the cracked asphalt. As she approached the iron gates of the old cemetery, her heart quickened. The hinges creaked when she pushed the gate open, the sound echoing through the empty graveyard like a groan from deep within the earth. She clutched the flashlight tightly, its thin beam cutting through the fog that clung to the gravestones. The air was damp and cold, sinking into her bones. She hesitated, thinking about turning back, but the taunts from her friends rang in her ears. This was the only way to make them stop. As she walked deeper into the graveyard, shadows seemed to stretch and shift around her. The ground felt uneven beneath her feet, as though something was writhing just below the surface. She tried to ignore it, telling herself it was just her imagination. Then she saw it, an old forgotten mausoleum at the center of the graveyard. Its stone door was slightly ajar. Emily froze. Something wasn't right. Her instincts screamed for her to turn around and leave, but her pride pulled her forward. She approached the mausoleum slowly, her breath shallow. The air inside was thick with the smell of decay. Her flashlight flickered. "No, no, no," she whispered, shaking it until the light returned. Suddenly, a sound, a faint shuffling like footsteps, came from inside the mausoleum. Emily's heart stopped. It couldn't be. There was no one here, right? She stepped closer, her curiosity overpowering her fear. "Hello?" She called out, her voice trembling, disappearing into the dark. There was no answer. Emily hesitated, then inched toward the door. She reached out to push it fully open, her fingers brushing against the cold, rough stone. Before she could react, something cold and wet grabbed her wrist. She gasped, dropping the flashlight, the beam rolling erratically across the ground. She yanked her arm back and fell, crawling backward on the dirt as her pulse raced. A dark shape slithered from the mausoleum, silent and formless, but heavy with the sense of something ancient. Panic gripped her as the shadows seemed to grow denser, pulling toward her, swirling in a way that defied reality. She could feel something watching, something waiting just beyond the edge of the flashlight's dying glow. From behind a gravestone, she heard a low, raspy whisper. "You're not alone." Emily scrambled to her feet, her eyes wide, breath coming in sharp gasps. A hand, gray, decaying, emerged from the earth just in front of her, its fingers curling upward as though seeking to pull her under. More hands followed, dragging themselves from the ground, twisted bodies crawling toward her. Their eyes were empty, sunken pits, their jaws hanging open in silent screams. She ran, but the hands followed. She could hear them clawing through the dirt, pulling themselves free of their graves. Every breath she took felt like it was her last, the cold chill of death nipping at her heels. The exit gate was in sight. She could almost reach it. Suddenly, a loud wail echoed through the graveyard. It sounded close, so close that it made her stumble. She looked over her shoulder, her feet skidding on the ground, and saw the figures. One, dressed in tattered burial cloth, was no more than an arm's length behind her, its hollow eyes fixed on hers. In the blink of an eye, it lunged. Emily screamed, throwing herself against the iron gate. Her hands scrambled for the latch, her pulse pounding in her ears. She shoved the gate open just as the cold fingers grazed her ankle. She burst out onto the street, slamming the gate shut behind her. Her chest heaved as she backed away, staring into the shadows beyond the iron bars. The fog hung thicker now, hiding the cemetery from view. And then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the shadows vanished. Silence returned to the graveyard. The air still once more, Emily staggered back, her knees weak. She turned and ran, not stopping until she reached her house. She slammed her bedroom window shut, heart still racing. For the rest of the night, she didn't sleep, but as dawn broke, she could swear she heard faint whispers just outside her window, whispers that sounded like the dead calling her name. hope you like this scary story. Please subscribe my channel. I need your support. Thank you.